Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for attending the Early Connections Conference. My name is Kristen Clark. I am an Orientation and Mobility Specialist, as well as the Assistant Education Director for Community Programs here at Perkins. I really wish I was able to do this presentation in person this year, but maybe next year. I will add my contact info at the end, so if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out. Today, I'm going to be speaking with you about O&M and how to incorporate it into your everyday routine. What is O&M? Orientation is understanding where you are in space and in relation to others. And mobility is how to safely, efficiently, and gracefully move through space. It is provided by a COMS or an O&M, a certified orientation and mobility specialist. Mobility doesn't just stop after one session. It needs to be built into routines with a child and family to make that lasting impact that we want. I want to talk about what the concepts are that an O&M will work on with your child and how you as the parent can incorporate those concepts into your daily routines. One thing that I have learned from being in the education field for so long is that we love acronyms and we have basically our own vocabulary. You will find that your vocabulary will increase greatly as you navigate this journey. I am going to give a brief description of some terms that you may be hearing a lot of and are maybe unfamiliar with. These are all terms that will mean a little something different for each child, depending on where they are in their journey. Human guide. This is a way to travel where a visually impaired person holds the arm of another to walk safely. The person being guided will hold the back of the guide's arm lightly above the elbow and follows about a half a step behind. We say to hold that arm like you are holding a can of soda. This is a picture of two of our amazing O&M instructors, Matt and Tony. Note that they are not walking side by side, but rather the guide's shoulder is in front of the other person's shoulder. The first picture you see here is a student participating in our wilderness weekend. She is walking with another student using basic sighted guide grip. The second picture, the students are touring a local farm, and the student is using human guide along with holding his cane in what we call shepherd's pose. The third picture shows the modified grip for a child walking with an adult. The modified position is to hold the guide's wrist. This is not the same as holding another person's hand. The purpose of the grip that the visually impaired person has is to be able to let go when they want to. As a parent, you are probably holding their hand, but as they get a little older and get some independence, we want them to transition to holding on to maybe just your forearm, your wrist, or even just two fingers. At school, we teach staff and other students how to do sighted guide correctly. Hand holding isn't always age appropriate. As the guide, your responsibilities are to indicate potential hazards like objects in the way or simple directions like we're going to turn right in a few steps. Always walk at a comfortable pace, not pulling or steering or dragging the other person. There are other concepts to sighted guide that you should discuss with your O&M. This again is just your basic vocabulary lesson. Protective techniques are using your arms to protect your body. The upper technique is basically using your arm to protect your face. The palm is facing outwards and acts as a bumper. Imagine you are walking through the kitchen and somebody forgot to close one of the cabinet doors. Having that hand up will protect you from a facial injury from that cabinet. The lower protective technique is similar, but the palm is facing towards the body. It can protect you from tables or chairs that are left out. Teaching the child these techniques when they are young will be important. When walking somewhere with your child, if you see an obstacle approaching, tell them hands up or bumpers as quick, easy verbal cues that something is coming up. Trailing techniques. These are used to help a person move safely through like a hallway or a room, to help locate a door or an elevator, or detect the position of an object on that side. It also gives a person a real feeling of security when walking by allowing them to stay in contact with something like a wall or a counter or furniture. To trail, a person will place their pinky and ring finger against the wall at roughly hip height. The hand is palm down and slightly curled, and the elbow is slightly bent. The hand will trail along the wall as they walk. If you are walking with a child in a new location, allow them to trail along a wall, locate items in their path, and explore them textually. At home, they can trail around the kitchen counter and talk about everything they find on their way. At the grocery store, you can trail a shelf and have them locate a certain item, or even at your local library, practice trailing a wall just to locate a door. This picture shows one of my students trailing along the entryway to his school while using his cane in a diagonal position. Speaking of canes, canes, and canes. When it comes to using a white cane, there are many different types to think about. We will touch quickly upon the kiddie cane, an AMD, and an anticipator. The traditional white cane, as shown in the picture, has a black grip, a reflective red bottom, and a tip. The tip can sometimes be a round ball, a red ball, a smaller marshmallow, or a pencil tip, depending on the need of the child. There are also various specialty tips for inclement weather. The kiddie cane is just simply a smaller version designed specifically for children. They're usually lightweight and have a grip with grooves for finger placements. In this first picture, you'll see we have Chloe. She's using a traditional white cane with a red ball tip in her power chair during a White Cane Day parade on campus. The second picture has a group of children using white canes, and in the middle, the student is using what we call a kiddie cane. Adapted canes, or AMDs, alternative mobility devices. An adapted cane may have a T-bar handle or a T-bar base that can even have wheels on it, similar to the one in the first picture here. An AMD, alternative mobility device, could look like just a rectangle made out of PVC piping. The one pictured is one I made for a student, and the red tape was utilized to provide contrast. The purpose of the cane or the AMD is to allow the child to move freely through their environment, safely and securely. It helps to give information about their environment, including things like obstacles, drop-offs, or changes in terrain. Ultimately, it will help build confidence and allow for success in O&M. A properly fitted device can also help with posture by helping the child to maintain a more upright position. These devices are available commercially, and many comms will design and fabricate them themselves. We here at Perkins are lucky enough to have our ADC, the Assistive Device Center. The comms work closely with them to measure and design different alternative devices. Many times you'll hear teachers talk about anticipators. These are simply toys that you may already have at home. A push toy, the bubble popper, or a doll carriage. These are all ways to teach the concept of what's ahead and have the child start to learn about obstacle navigation. Allowing children to walk on different terrain will help to increase their stability and strength. Be sure to give them opportunity to walk on different surfaces. Carpets, tiles, outside on the grass and the snow, going up and down hills and on and off curbs. Indoors, you could put down a mat or a yoga mat that helps to increase the child's strength and stability with mobility. Determining when to start cane training and which one to use is a decision that should be made together by the family and the O&M. Many times families are hesitant to start training. They may think that it causes unwanted attention to the child or could make them a target. This is a very important conversation, and you really need to have this with your comms and your TVI and your team. Helping the child to learn independence is so important. So now that we've reviewed some of the terms and talked about some basic travel skills, let's talk about some of the concepts that we teach during O&M. Concept development involves understanding the characteristics of an object and its relationship to others. Students with visual impairments may miss out on incidental learning of these concepts and need to be provided with experiences to gain these skills. The focus of this conference, being on ages birth to 7, is a wide range developmentally. With the very young children, we talk about concept development. We're talking about the development of a skill. And as that child ages, we talk about incorporating those skills into higher level functioning in everyday activities. So think of it as the building blocks to a larger building. I will try and give examples at different age levels as we go through. So body concepts. This is all about parts of the body and how they function and move. Simple things like saying arms up when getting a child dressed or helping a toddler with a shirt will help the child to make the connection between their arms and going up. The typical head, shoulders, knees, and toes game is a great way to teach these concepts. But think about also showing the child that you have a head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Have them point out on someone else. As the child gets older, we're going to think about how they'll be trailing a wall with their left hand or using their right hand to hold their cane. Teaching left-right discrimination will occur roughly around age 5, but should be part of your everyday language of a child with visual impairment. Using a tactile cue like a tap on the right or left shoulder or left or right foot will also help the child to make that connection. This is a picture of 2 students from our outreach program outside on the field, stretching and getting ready. It is important for a child to understand not only where they are in space, but also where they are in relation to other people, so spatial and positional concepts. These skills learned as a child will carry over to the skills needed for successful travel in the community. Imagine as an adult, you ask your friend for directions to someplace. You're told, go 3 blocks down. At the corner, take a right, go underneath the bridge, rear their apartment above the pizza place. So think about all the concepts in that sentence. There's blocks, corners, right, under, and above. As a visually impaired person, those concepts need to be explicitly taught. During meal times, use the plate to talk about positions. Your mac and cheese is at the bottom of the plate. Your chicken is at the top. With older children, O&M will begin to incorporate clock face directions. So saying things like, we want you to turn and face your 3 o'clock. When the kids are little, walk them around their space or their room. Talk about how the door is next to the bed. The window is above the bed. Talking about where they are in relation to other objects in their room. When you tuck them into bed, say that they are below the window. As they start to understand that concept, you can go outside and into the yard and explain that outside there is a tree next to the house, just like your bed is next to the door. This will help to carry over the concept into other situations. I like to have matchbox cars with me when I see a child. We can have the cars or the trucks go under or over a bridge or through a tunnel. It gives them a hands-on understanding of those spatial concepts. I also like to set up obstacle courses. Having objects they can walk over or around or a tunnel to go through is a great way to incorporate these concepts into movement. In this picture, you will see a mobility lesson occurring at an apple orchard. We were working on left and right and up and down. She was able to follow those verbal directions to locate an apple and pull it off of the branch. Sensory awareness. Incidental learning is unintentional or unplanned learning that results from regular everyday activities. For children, the majority of this happens through vision. With limited or no vision, the child needs extra explanations and experiences. Take a moment and close your eyes. You're walking into a birthday party. You hear children laughing, toys being played with, adults are having conversations. You can smell cake and sugary sweets. Maybe there's music playing and people singing. Imagine not being able to identify those things you're hearing and smelling or where they are coming from. These are all concepts that we have to teach our children with visual impairments through sensory awareness. Sound identification. The first sound that babies hear is usually a parent's voice. That voice is a safe, comfortable noise to hear. When the child hears that voice, they may turn and look towards its source. For a child with no vision, that parent's voice or smell is how they will identify them. For many small children with visual impairment, unfamiliar sounds can be very scary. By talking and explaining what that sound is and where it's coming from will be reassuring. Using books that have an audio component is a wonderful way to introduce sound identification. The books where you press a button and you hear the police car or the fire engine. When you're out in the community and you hear that sound, explain to the child, it's a police car, just like in your favorite book that we read last night. Sounds like an airplane are a little more difficult concept because the planes are up so high, they can't see them, they can't touch them. So a toy airplane for them is going to help them with that, provide them with that tactual exploration they need to understand it. As the child gets older, the ability to accurately identify and locate a sound source is going to be crucial for safe travel. Understanding where that sound is coming from. When I walk down my street, I can hear the traffic at the end of the street. By knowing where the traffic sounds are coming from, I can make sure that I'm going in the correct direction. When you enter a grocery store, can you hear the cash registers? That will direct you to where you need to go pay for those items. And with a higher level of understanding, the child may know that usually the registers are right near the exit. It is our job to describe the environment to a child. We want to make it as simple as possible and use a normal speaking voice. Don't overwhelm the child with too much talking, too much explanation. Going back to the party example we just used, explaining to the child that you'll hear adult voices and you'll hear children's voices. The adults are gathered next to the window. You will hear yelling as the children are having a race. There is music on a radio in the back of the room. There is a table in the middle of the room that has bowls of chips and juice boxes. The picture on this slide is a little girl holding a blue beeping Easter egg. This was a tradition at Perkins prior to the pandemic, where they had a beeping egg hunt every year. Landmarks and cues. When traveling, either in the home or out in a busy city, landmarks and cues will be very important for a person to help determine their orientation. Landmarks are permanent fixtures. The traveler will always know they are there. In the home, this could be something as simple as the refrigerator in the kitchen. At school, it could be the water fountain or the bubbler that is next to their classroom. In the community, this could be the intersection of two streets that need to be crossed to get home. The clues provide temporary information. In the home, it could be the smell of coffee indicating the kitchen. Could also be a good indicator of time and that it is morning. At school, a clue could be the sounds of smells coming from the cafeteria, indicating where the caf is located, as well as the time. In the community, a traveler may use the smell of a local restaurant to indicate where they are on a street. So back to this picture we looked at earlier. This bridge on campus is a landmark the students use to navigate all around. The clues they may be experiencing now are the smell of the pond that the bridge goes over, or the sound of the wind in the trees nearby. An experienced traveler may even be able to use the sun for directionality and time of day. Adapting a safe environment. Children will fall, that is inevitable. Children with vision and without will fall. But there are some things that you can do to keep an environment safer for a child with visual impairments. Starting with lighting. Some children may be light sensitive and may experience pain with bright lights, while others may need task lighting to see best. It is important to observe a child in a variety of environments to determine what is best. In the home, having curtains or blinds can help to control the level of lighting throughout the day, as well as to help avoid glare. Be cautious of shiny surfaces that can reflect light and make things more difficult to see. I see this a lot in schools when they have those beautiful high shine gymnasium floors. It looks beautiful, but unfortunately can cause a lot of glare. Contrast. For children with low vision, having contrast may make it easier for the child to see something. The picture on this slide is a playground at Perkins. Note the contrast on the climbing structures. The colors are contrasting yellow, red, and blue, helping to make navigate it a little bit safer. Contrast colored tape on stairways, doorways, or thresholds will help to draw attention to them. This is probably the most asked question I get as an O&M instructor, is about taping stairs. I recommend that stairs usually be marked on each step. Sometimes it may only be necessary to mark the first and last steps, or sometimes even just the railing to help draw visual attention to it. If you have questions, please work with your comms to figure out what is safest for your child. If they are outside steps, take into consideration if the sun will cast a shadow on them and what those weather conditions may be. The picture on this slide of two sets of stairs, one is gray and the other is black and white. This picture was actually taken from a home design website, but what I like about this first picture with the gray carpet, you can almost tell just how difficult it would be for a person with a vision impairment to look at. It's hard to tell where the steps are. I would even maybe too afraid to attempt that. The second picture shows how different it can be with the contrasting colors. If I was standing at the top or bottom of those stairs, I would know where each step was going to be. The increased lighting also helps to illuminate that contrast. The second picture is to demonstrate how to provide contrast at mealtime. Using a colored placemat on the table that contrasts with the dishes will make it easier for the child to self-feed. Things like highlighting light switches in the house with a contrasting color increase the child's ability to turn on and off lights. Small shiny tape that you can find at any craft store is easy to apply as well as easy to remove when it's no longer needed. If the floor has a very busy pattern, a small solid colored area rug can be used to define a location, and just the opposite. If it's a solid floor, using a patterned mat can also help you to define a certain area. As a child gains some independence, you can highlight refrigerator doors so they can open it easily. Many times you can use magnet tape to mark them. I use magnetic tape on door frames in the schools because it's easy to apply as well as easy to move. It can be moved up as the child grows taller, so it's at eye level, and even moved to another classroom the following year. You can mark the microwave with what we call bump dots so they can start to cook easy, quick items. A dot on the start button helps them to find it and they can press it. Avoid clutter. Yes, I know that is much easier said than done with children. I always suggest this to teachers when they have a student in their classroom with a visual impairment, and I actually feel almost guilty saying it. Having a predictable location for everything and teaching the child to return it to that location will help to increase independence. For younger children, a set area where the toys are, or always putting their sippy cup in the same location so they can grab it independently. For school age, a set place that they keep their school supplies, lunchbox, backpack. It will make them more independent and able to grab them themselves. Outside of the home, I have done things like use orange cones to mark off an unsafe area in the yard, whether it's a hole or if you have swings and other kids could be playing on them. A cone in the front and the back will show where they could be going. Bright colored paint can also be used to spray paint a rock that could be a tripping hazard outside in the yard. So putting it all together, we have covered a lot of concepts and ideas on how to incorporate O&M into your everyday activities. This first picture just looks like a child playing with a simple toy, but he is really working on cause and effect. If I touch a circle, it makes a certain noise. There are 4 circles, so he can work in midline as well as crossing midline to make that sound. With some vision, he can learn that the circles are different colors or that they have pictures on them. He is sitting upright in space. That toy is below him on the floor, and there's a person next to him helping him. This picture was taken during a group, so there were other children and adults in the room, so there was many other noises occurring. The grocery store is by far my favorite place for lessons to occur with all age groups. Taking a small child there and talking about the sounds, the smells, and the layout of the store is an amazing lesson. Maybe not on a Friday afternoon before a holiday weekend to do all of your weekly shopping, but during a quieter time when you're not as rushed. Think about when you first walk into a grocery store. There's usually automatic doors. Talk about how they open when you step on a certain spot and then close after a certain amount of time. The carriages are usually right there. What is a carriage? What do you put in it? How big is it? For a small child, letting them sit in it and explore it with their hands. What do you smell? The bakery, the cooking food? Talk about what that smell is and that it's to your left or your right. When you walk through the produce, you can hear the water spraying down. Why does it do this? Is it cooler in certain sections of the store? Why? If you wanted ice cream, why do you think it's in a cold aisle? What else would be there? As the child gets older, allow them to trail along the rows of food and talk about what they find. Talk about how there's 4 rows of food and the most popular items are going to be at the eye level of an average adult. How are the foods grouped together? Why is the pasta always with the sauce? As an O&M instructor, I have students do lessons regularly in the grocery store. Around middle school, I'll have them make a list of ingredients to make a favorite food. It's usually mac and cheese. I have them figure out the price of the ingredients and then go get them. Understanding these concepts early on will make them better and more independent travelers as they get older. For children up to age 3 who are being seen by our infant toddler teachers, we offer a Let's Move consultation. The TVI, O&M, and parent will meet at a location, preferably in an unfamiliar area, and talk about how the child is navigating their environment. The O&M will offer ideas or suggestions on things to work on or adaptations that can be made in the environment. We will also provide information on what we feel should be looked at by the school system when the child is ready for that next step. If you have questions about a Let's Move, please reach out to your child's TVI. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this presentation. I hope that I have given you a few ideas on how you can incorporate O&M into your everyday routine. If you want to connect with me, my name and email are on the screen and you can reach out at any time. Thank you so much.